Hello everybody. Today I would like to welcome you to the third study in our series of Before the Rapture. If you have not heard any of the other videos, you will want to go to beforetherapture.com. There you will find the first two of the videos in our series. As the word says, we are studying what the Bible says about the events that must happen before the rapture of the church. In our second study, we were looking at the unusual teaching of Daniel chapter 8. We went through chapter 8 and we saw that it seems to indicate that Greece is a prominent end-time world power. Also, Greece will comprise 4 kingdoms at the end times, probably 4 of the 10 that we see in Revelation. Also, one of these kingdoms will produce the Antichrist. Now, I understand that this is a very novel idea. I have not heard many people discuss such a scenario for the end times. And according to the rules of Bible hermeneutics, we know that one mention of a teaching is not enough to establish doctrine. In chapter 8 of Daniel, it indicated these facts about Greece. Is there more such references in the Bible? We will see that in chapter 11, as we go through it, it will provide the same kind of a picture. And we know from the law itself that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. If we find 2, 3, and we're going to find more than 2 or 3 references and more teachings as we go through our series that will firm up the doctrine that we found mentioned in chapter 8. Now, before we dive into chapter 11, chapter 11 of Daniel is the most remarkable prophecy chapter in the Bible, at least according to my estimation. In this chapter, the subject is the Gentile world, but the focus is Israel. The reason I'm saying that is because what we read in chapter 11 is a prophecy that encompasses all of the world history from the time of Daniel until the second coming of Jesus. However, while it is talking about Gentile powers, the focus is Israel because the history that is being mentioned of the Gentiles is only that history which is significant to Israel. As Daniel is talking about Greece and about Rome and later about end time, he is speaking about all the world powers that had something to do with the fortunes of Israel. As we go through chapter 11, you are going to see that in this chapter the claims of higher criticism are destroyed. Also, it is the strongest evidence supporting dispensationalism over covenant theology. Now, if you know what higher criticism and dispensationalism and covenant theology are, you are going to understand as we go through this study, which is going to be probably 3 parts, you're going to understand why I'm saying this. And if you do not know what is higher criticism, what is dispensationalism, what is covenant theology, then don't worry about it because these are incidental points and they're not very pivotal in our study. Now we're going to start with the second verse in chapter 11, and here we see, "Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia." If you have not read the 11th chapter of Daniel, you should do it, and you will see that at this point the angel is talking to Daniel and he's telling him what is going to happen from the time of Daniel onward. Now, from the second verse of chapter 11 until the 35th verse, the angel is giving to Daniel prophecies which have been fulfilled. After the 35th verse, we will see that the prophecies that are mentioned are still future. And now we're going to go through and see how chapter 11 verse 2 until chapter 11 verse 35 has been fulfilled. Here we see what the angel said, and we're going to check out with secular history to see how things have been fulfilled. We see from secular history that the three kings from the time of Darius II, which was the king at the time that the prophecy is given, after this Cambyses rises, who is the son of Cyrus the Great, and he reigns from 530 BC until 522 BC. After him, Bardiya, this Persian term, Smerdis is the term that the Greeks used, and he reigned for a few months at the year 522 BC. After him, there is this king who is called Darius Hystaspes, who reigns from 522 to 486 BC. Now he is the king that makes the first attack against Greece, and he does that in 490 BC. Now he was defeated by Miltiades in Marathon. And yes, this is the marathon after which the race that is being run is named. Now let's get back to the text of the Bible. And the fourth shall be far richer than they all, and by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. Now this fourth king is Xerxes. He assembled an army of 1 million, and he attacked Greece in 480 BC. Now in order to sell the Persian nobility on this venture, he threw a 6-month party that we read about in the book of Esther. In this war, he breaks through the Spartan defense of the 300, and that happens in Thermopylae, but then he is soundly defeated by Themistocles in the decisive naval battle of Salamis. Then, with his navy destroyed, he is forced to abandon the quest to conquer Greece. Then on to verse 3, and the mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. At this point the prophecy jumps several decades, because it's speaking about Alexander the Great, who comes along in 336, and he comes against Persia with about 35,000 soldiers and a war fund of an equivalent of $75,000, and with these little resources he conquers not only Persia but the whole known world, and he is said to have wept because there were no more places to conquer. He dies of a mysterious illness at the age of 33, while his wife Roxanne was Darius' daughter, who was the Persian king that he defeated, and Roxanne is pregnant with his son, who was born after his death. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the four winds of the heaven. You will remember from chapter 8 that Alexander's 4 generals become kings of the 4 different kingdoms into which Alexander's domain was divided into. And not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up even for others besides those. Now the fulfillment of that is that Alexander had one son, who, besides the one that was born by Roxanne, he also had a brother. All of them, all 3, were murdered inside the tumultuous period that the fighting over his succession took place. It was not a smooth transition from one kingdom. It was a fight that lasted a good 20 years. Then the 4 generals were established to their kingdoms. The sum total of the new 4 kingdoms was smaller than the kingdom of Alexander, because some parts fell to smaller regional rulers, and that fulfills this even for others besides those. And the king of the south, this is going to be Ptolemy, shall be strong, and one of his princes. This will be Seleucus. Now, right after the death of Alexander, his generals intended to care for the kingdom until his newborn son, with Roxanne, became of age and take over the kingdom. However, they quickly fell into divisions. Antigonus, who was the most capable and powerful ruler, appeared to have the upper hand in succeeding Alexander. So the other 4 generals ganged up on him, and Ptolemy was the leader of the gang. This one of his princes is Seleucus. Seleucus distinguished himself in the fight against Antigonus. After 4 wars that took place from 321 to 301 BC, the 4 kingdoms emerged. And one of his princes, Seleucus, and he shall be strong above him, Ptolemy, and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. Now Seleucus started out as a satrap of Babylon under Antigonus, but Antigonus demanded of him to give him an account of his rule over Babylon, and I guess because Seleucus had not been doing that good of a job, he fled into Egypt. Ptolemy took Seleucus under his wing. Ptolemy was being established down in Egypt. After a few years, Seleucus returns to Babylon. He engages Antigonus and he defeats him. After the death of Antigonus in 301, Seleucus, who is aided by his triumph over Antigonus, takes the lion's share of what was Alexander's kingdom. Now you will see here in this map how the kingdom was divided. We see Cassander taking this small part, which is Macedonia and Greece. Lysimachus takes this part here, which is Thrace, and this part of Asia Minor. Ptolemy takes this small part, which is Egypt, and the lion's share belongs to Seleucus, that takes up all this part of Asia Minor and into Asia, all the way into what really is Afghanistan today. And in the end of years they shall join themselves together. A better translation would be after some years. As you can imagine, the rivalry between the Seleucid and the Ptolemaic kingdoms is intense from the very beginning. The Seleucid dynasty lasts from 312 to 65 BC. This is when Pompey takes Syria. He is the Roman general that makes Syria a Roman possession. This entire period, the Seleucids are fighting the Ptolemies. The advantage seesaws between the two, and of course Israel is always caught in the middle. It turns out that this after some years is a 62-year period, because it is around 250 BC that the Seleucid and the Ptolemy kings get tired of the continuous fighting and they try to make an alliance. For the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. Now, as it is customary among royalty, the way to make an alliance, it is through marriage. The king of the north here is Antiochus II Theos. The king of the south at this point is Ptolemy II Philadelphus. They have been fighting for years and they decide to form an alliance through marriage at 250 BC. Now this is a very important date because we know through secular history that about 200 BC is when the Septuagint translation is completed. Septuagint translation is the translation of the Old Testament from the Hebrew into the Greek. Now remember this because we're going to make a very important point in a few minutes. Berenice is the daughter of Ptolemy II, and she is to marry Antiochus II. However, Antiochus is already married to Laodice, so no problem. He divorces his wife and proceeds with a marriage, and he is putting Laodice away along with her children. But she, Berenice, shall not retain the power of the arm. The power of the arm is Syria. Neither shall he, Antiochus II, stand, nor his arm, nor his domain over Syria. You see, at first things went according to plan. The child of Berenice was in line to inherit the throne of the north, but Antiochus II starting to have second thoughts. Apparently he realizes that this child is going to be related to the Egyptian king, so Syria is going to be in jeopardy. And also he may have realized at this point that maybe he liked his first children, the children that he had with Laodice, better. And in any case, he changes his mind about the whole thing, and he recalls his first wife, Laodice, and her children. So the succession of the Syrian kingdom no longer belongs to the child of Berenice, but to the children of the recalled Laodice. But she, Berenice, shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, this is her father, and he that strengthened her, that is Antiochus, in these times. You see, Laodice, having been scorned and now having the favor of the palace back, she conspires, she murders Berenice, she murders her son, all her attendants that came from Egypt, and the alliance with Ptolemy goes out of the window. Finally, she poisons her husband Antiochus II, and she installs her own child, Callinicus, as a king. Then Berenice's father, Ptolemy II, dies of natural causes in 246 BC, not long after this whole debacle. And in verse 7, but out of the branch of her roots, this is talking about a brother, shall one stand up in his estate. Now the estate of the one that strengthened her, which was Ptolemy II estate. A branch of her roots is a term indicating a sibling of Berenice, and indeed Berenice has a brother who is called Ptolemy III, and he succeeds his father Ptolemy II in 246 BC, which shall come with an army and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, this is Callinicus, and shall deal against them and shall prevail. Ptolemy III is out for revenge for his sister. So he assembles an army, he defeats Callinicus, he annexes some Syrian provinces to the east, and he ravages the coasts of Asia Minor with his navy. This is all documented secular history. And shall also carry captives into Egypt their gods, with their princes, and with their precious vessels of silver and of gold. Now Ptolemy's victory was complete. He not only entered the fortress of Callinicus, but he plundered Seleucia, Susa, which was the capital of the old Persian Empire. He raids Susa, and he recovers the statues of the Egyptian gods, which Cambyses, you will remember Cambyses being the first king right after Darius II, and he had taken from Egypt 300 years before. Now the local Egyptians are so moved to have their gods of gold back that they call him Evergetis. That means benefactor. And he shall continue more years than the king of the north. Ptolemy III Evergetis lives 5 years longer than Callinicus, who died by falling off his horse. At this point in our discussion, I realize that I'm faced with a dilemma. I know I'm talking to two different types of people. Type 1. Most of you are tired from this long history lesson. You can see that Daniel 11 contains many prophecies about a period of time, a period of history that is long gone. The prophecies have been fulfilled and done with. You got the point. And going on through to the end of verse 35 will just be a tedious history lesson. For those of you who fit this category, I would advise that after the end of this video you skip on to video number 5, because that's where we will pick up with verse 36, and there we will see that Those prophecies are what we are interested in because they're unfulfilled prophecies concerning the end times. Then there is type 2. A few of you are going to be detail oriented and you want the specifics. You watch video number 4 because in video number 4 I'm going to go through the history lesson. Now let's return to our point about the year 250 BC. As I said, we know from secular history that it is about this time that the Septuagint translation of the Bible of the Old Testament is completed. As you see in this timeline, it is in the year 539 BC that the prophecy is given. Then when we go through to verse 35, prophecy is speaking about events that end with the year 164 BC. So the Septuagint translation is completed right in the middle of this period. And of course the Septuagint translation includes Daniel. Now higher critics of the Bible see this chapter 11 and how exact the fulfillment of the prophecies have been, and of course they don't like that. And they say that Daniel was written closer to the time of Christ, and all of this period here, when Daniel is written, is history. And what Daniel is doing, whoever wrote Daniel, is just faking it to be a prophecy, when in reality he's just writing history. You can see that they have a problem. The higher critics have a problem. The prophecies continue to be fulfilled after 250 BC into 164 BC. For the translators of the Septuagint to know what has happened from 250 to 164, they will have to travel in time, go here, get a copy of the late writings of Daniel, come back and translate it in 250 BC. So you see, history itself makes the claims of the higher critics totally bogus. Now before I close this video, let me speak to the title of this video, The Greatest Mystery of Christmas Story Revealed, Part 1. Please be patient. I know you didn't hear anything about Christmas in this video. There is a build-up, and it will probably take 3 parts. By the end of the 3rd part, you will see how the prophecies of chapter 11 give us a good clue of how to answer the greatest mystery of the Christmas story. Until next time, God bless.